What's happening, everybody? Tom Bowman live, global news. Welcome to the program. I'm going to wait until a few people come on because I have a couple of announcements that I'm going to make before I get started on what's happening, what's been going on around the world. Just give me a few moments here to get adjusted, and then I'm going to get this party started. Okay, for starters, as I begin today, I am going to talk about some of the prominent happenings that from Donald to Luigi Mangione and some other stories that are making national headlines. And also be talking about some news from overseas as well to kind of give it a well-balanced program. Starting tomorrow, I will be broadcasting live basically twice a week. That will be Mondays and Wednesdays. So I'll be broadcasting live starting tomorrow, Monday and Wednesdays, because I have a hectic schedule to keep up with not just my work schedule, but as I've said many times, I'm also a law student, so I'm getting deeper and deeper in the studying, and I might have to pull back somewhat here on YouTube, but I will be consistent with my content. Also, I'm going to show you this here. Finally, I got some new equipment. This is my new tripod. As soon as I learned how to work it, it's an automatic tripod, courtesy of one of the contributors and subscribers to Tyrone Bowman Live, rather. And I told you not too long ago that I'm working on building a studio. I'm not playing here. Got to get this thing looking more professional sounding, more professional looking. So this is a brand new tripod. It's somewhat complicated for me. Might not be for you, but for me it is. So once I learn how to work it, then I'll be using it constantly, and I won't be using this makeshift stuff that I have here. So join me every Monday and every Wednesday for Tyrone Bowman Live. And if anything breaks by the way of major news, then I will make an exception. And on Thursdays, I may come on Thursdays, depending upon what's happening, what's going on, with just some light stuff, not too much heavy stuff. Now, let's get down to business. Sometimes it's almost unbelievable when it comes to the things that are happening in the nation and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we here in America, we have to wake up, honestly and truthfully. We must become awakened to the point where we understand the seriousness of what we're living through and what we're dealing with. I was going to talk about the Constitution if I can get a hold of my Constitution. Give me a second. Yep, got it with me. Because I want to read something from the Constitution before I read these news stories. I've been watching a program on Netflix titled Titans. I've been checking it out. It's a dramatization of the movers and the shakers who were responsible for everything from the railroad industry to commerce to economics to banking, etc., and etc. And the one thing I've learned from watching that particular series, well, I am watching it, these people were ruthless. They were ruthless. I call it ruthless aggression that they use in order to get to where they got to, in order to do the things that they wanted to do. In commerce and in business, individuals sometimes and in commerce and in business, some people don't realize that some people just don't have any ethics. They don't have any morals. Because in this world that we're living in, if you are not mean and hateful and bitter and assertive, people think you're weak. And if you come off being humble and nice, people try to take advantage of you. Don't allow people to take your kindness for weakness. Don't let people think that you're somebody that they can push over. Now, let me read something from the Constitution before I get into these stories here. The Bill of Rights, and I don't think people really understand this, so I'm going to read it. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, or known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified effective December 15th, 1791. On September 25th, 1789, Congress transmitted to the state legislatures 12 proposed amendments, of which the first two dealt with congressional representation and congressional pay. So those who are congressmen and congresswomen, they receive a pay for their services, even though they are elected, and that's paid for out of the state treasury. Numbers 3 through 12 were adopted by the states to become the Bill of Rights in 1791. So, in effect, Amendment number 3 of the proposed 12 is our First Amendment. There is normally a 7-year time limit with the possibility of an extension for an amendment to be approved by 3/4 of the state legislatures. 38 states is 3/4, and to become a part of the Constitution. All right, amendment number 1, and this is the one where people have a major problem with. Then I'll get into amendment number 2. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Let me tell you what tyrants do. Dictators, authoritarians, the first thing they want to do is get rid of the press. Hitler did it during his time. Convince people that the press is their enemy and only believe what they say, because what they say is more important than what the free press. That's known as propaganda. A propagandist message is a message that is only designed by those in power to convince you that what they're doing is for your good. In actuality, it's not for your good. Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, and all of the others that were dictators. Go through the annals of history. If you don't believe me, find out what happened to them in the end. What we have in America, people try to say that America is a Christian nation. No, America is not a Christian nation. Let's get that straight. And that's the problem. So-called nationalism, national Christianity, under the guise of so-called conservatism. In many instances, you see what it has become. If you don't agree with them, if you don't go along with them, if you don't think and talk and act the way they do, if you don't become nomadic, then you don't matter. Where are the voices of dissent from the so-called spiritual leaders in this nation, with the exception of a few who are supposed to speak up for the poor, the hurting, the suffering, the needy, and the dismarginalized? I'll tell you where they are. They have compromised themselves by accepting a lot of money. They're afraid that their lavish lifestyles that they have created for themselves and their families and their cronies will be taken away from them, their 401c tax exemption status. They built their empires from the public trough, and they don't want to lose it. That's what's going on with them, and they took the money, so now they can't open their mouths to speak, but they'll open their mouths and speak for against those who are protesting. They have a whole lot to say when it comes to them. Well, according to what I'm reading here, Congress shall make no law. There is no law that has been enacted concerning religion or stopping the free exercise thereof, of abridging the freedom of speech. One party does not get to say whatever they want to say, whenever they want to say it, how they want to say it, and then other people cannot have a voice of opposition. I've told you, I call it polarization politics. If you're not a Republican, if you're not a part of MAGA, then according to them, you don't exist. Well, they're wrong. You have a right to speak, but you don't have a right to be reckless in your speech. And those who think they're the majority when it comes to everything, everyone, and everybody, they're committing all kind of crimes and don't want anybody to voice any opposition against it. Freedom of the press. Remember Walton Annenberg, William Randolph Hearst? These men built empires and dynasties based upon their ability when it came to capitalism and when it came to owning their own printing companies. The press is always going to be around, whether it is the corporate press, which bows down to the status quo, or the independent press. But the press was not going to go anywhere. Just because somebody has a difference of opinion doesn't make them wrong. And because some people are forceful and nasty with their opinions, that doesn't make them right. You'll see where I'm going with this in a second. The right of the people peaceably to assemble. Protesting should not be a violent thing. The late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led nonviolent protests all across America. As a matter of fact, because I'm reading a book about Dr. King right now, they had extensive training sessions. And in those training sessions, they would have to go through an enactment of what they were going to face if they were going to be a part of the movement. Dr. King adapted his techniques from Gandhi, Mohandas K. Gandhi, the Indian educated, trained lawyer who brought the British Empire down to their knees in order to gain independence for his people. Gandhi wasn't concerned about any people except his people. Nelson Mandela was a South African educated and trained lawyer who took a great defiant stand against apartheid. Why? Because even in their own homeland, Africans were being treated as subservient things. So if people can't protest peaceably, then don't protest at all. In many instances, it's not the protesters that's causing all the problems. There are paid agitators who are in the midst, who get paid to disrupt. You saw it during the Black Lives Matter protests. Police officers were out there causing a lot of damage, trying to hide their faces behind masks and everything, breaking windows, setting fires all over the place, and then blamed it on the protesters. Inside sabotage has never gone anywhere. That's why I don't believe anything police officers say, because I know they speak with a double-forked tongue. They will lie, cheat, steal, set people up. They'll even kill those who work within law enforcement if they don't go along with the wrong thing. You know it's true, and I know it's true. Where do you think all these movies and stuff come from in Hollywood? It says this is a work of fiction based upon actual events, meaning that part of it is real. Now let's talk about the right to bear arms, because this seems to be a big issue with the National Rifle Association, who have been appallingly silent. They've said nothing about the murders of Renee Nicole Good. They said nothing about the murder of Alex Pretty. They've been appallingly silent. I wonder why. Quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of free state, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Isn't this what they always harp about? That they have a right to legally carry weapons. But they don't want the Democrats to have the legal right to carry weapons. What hypocrisy. All right, if you're a convicted felon, you shouldn't be carrying weapons. It's illegal. That's why they want most people convicted, so that they won't be able to legally possess a weapon. And then, like with Alex Pretty rather, he was legalized to bear arms, because you saw how they demonized him and trashed him and talked about him in such disparaging ways. Let me ask you a question for those of you who think everything that's going on in this country is so funny. How would you like it if somebody did that to somebody in your family? Suppose somebody in your family was out protesting and they got murdered. Would you like it then? Would you think it's a wonderful thing to do? Because somebody doesn't believe like y'all or doesn't hate like y'all? Let me tell you something. I am not stupid. I've been a black man in America for a long time. I see what's going on in this nation. Give me a second. I got to correct something here, and we'll be right back. As I said, I've been black in America for a long time. I was raised in the midst of segregation, bigotry, what was left of Jim Crow. I've seen it all. I've been growing up in my neighborhood. We've been called every type of derogatory name all over the place. But you don't like it when black people stand up for themselves. Some of y'all. Now, if somebody says anything against the Jews, you call it anti-Semitism. But it's okay for you all to hate black people. Let me tell you something. It's called nigger. That's what they called us growing up. It's not the N word. That's what they said. The bigots, the racists that I grew up around. And I called them quite a few names as well. Because my mother taught me to stand up for myself. Don't let nobody call you out of your name, no matter who they are. If you understood the definition of what a nigger is, you know they come in all sizes, shapes, and colors, and nationalities. So people don't get the right to say, well, you know what? I can legally purchase a gun, but you can't legally purchase a gun because you're black, or because you're Mexican, or because you're Latino. That's the problem in America today. The good old boys say they want to, that's what MAGA's all about. They want to go back to a time when lynching was justified. Back to a time when segregation and Jim Crow was justified. Back to a time when they could say any and everything and get away with it. Well, that brings me to this story. Let's talk about Luigi Mangione. He will not face the death penalty after U.S. judge dismisses the murder charge. So you mean to tell me it was okay for him, quote unquote, to execute a man in the back of his head? The former CEO, the now deceased CEO of United Healthcare. There is one set of rules for the white, wealthy, privileged people well-connected in this world. What do you think would have happened if this was a black person who committed the same crime? Do you really think that the worst charges against him would have been dropped? 24 charges were dropped against him. And the people trying to tell me, well, he went to the University of Pennsylvania and he's an Ivy League graduate. I don't care. Murder is murder. So according to Reuters, this story was written by Jack Queen and Jonathan Stempel. Here's a summary before I get into the basis of it. Judges say, or the judge says, murder charges are incompatible with stalking charges. This judge was bought and paid for. I don't care what you say. Mangione faces possible life in prison on remaining federal charges. That's a lie. He's not going to face life in prison. They're going to find a way to let him walk free. The U.S. hasn't decided whether to appeal. The judge won't suppress contents of Mangione's backpack. Mangione still faces New York State a murder case. All right, let's get down to it. According to Reuters news agency, Luigi Mangione will not face the death penalty after a U.S. judge on Friday dismissed murder and weapons charges against the accused murderer of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in a major blow to federal prosecutors. They need to appeal it. And the U.S. prosecutors need to aggressively appeal it. His family should not be sitting by taking things lightly. So U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett in Manhattan said she felt constrained by Supreme Court precedents to dismiss the murder charge. Lie. Calling it legally incompatible with the two federal stalking charges Mangione still faces. Mangione still faces murder charges in a separate case brought by state prosecutors of federal murder statutes carry different legal requirements than compatible state laws, and Garnett said federal law required Mangione's murder and weapons charges to be tied to another crime of violence. Stalking, the judge said, did not meet this requirement because it was neither, quote, inherently violent nor always intentional. Garnett acknowledged that the average person might be bewildered by the dismissal. Might be bewildered. People are upset about it. Because the same judge, if this was an immigrant, she would have not dismissed any charges at all. If it was a black person, she would have not dismissed any charges at all. You know it, and I know it. So her justification doesn't meet the standards, it's incompatible. Well, in my neighborhood, where I grew up at, when they would arrest people, they would put umpteen charges on them just for simply carrying a penknife, standing on the corner, standing up under a street light at night. Mangione, who's 27, still faces possible life in prison. It's not going to happen. Dominique Gentile, a federal prosecutor, told Garnett at a court hearing that the government has not decided whether to appeal. Let that sink in for a minute. Speaking to reporters after the hearing, a lawyer for Mangione, Karen Agnefello, thanked Garnett for the incredible decision. As for Mangione's reaction, she said, "We're all relieved. This is an inside job." Thompson, who led United Health Group's UNH.H health insurance business, was shot and killed on December 4, 2024, outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Mangione pleaded not guilty to all charges stemming from Thompson's death and has been jailed since his arrest in Pennsylvania 5 days after the killing. This is my question. How did he get from New York City up into mid-Pennsylvania? How did he get there? Who helped him? Who aided and abetted him? While public officials widely condemned Mangione's killing, Mangione became a folk hero of sorts of Americans who decry high costs for medical care and health insurance practices. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He is not a folk hero. Let's get on to the next story because I'm not going to read every word. This is crazy. All right, I see the Epstein files are back in the news. I don't know why, but let's find out what's going on here. All right, according to APnews.com, the headline reads, in an article written by Michael R. Sisak, Danica Karka, and Ben Finley. Epstein files lead to resignation in Slovakia and calls in Britain for the former prince to cooperate. Newly discovered U.S. government files on Jeffrey Epstein have prompted the resignation of a top official in Slovakia and revived calls in Britain for a former prince to share what he knows with authorities about Epstein's links to powerful individuals around the world. The fallout comes just a day after the Justice Department began releasing a massive trove of files that offers more details about Epstein's interactions with the rich and famous after he served time for sex crimes in Florida. The Prime Minister of Slovakia accepted the resignation on Saturday of an official, Marcovak Lakak, who once had a year-long term as president of the UN General Assembly. He wasn't accused of wrongdoing, but left his position after photos and emails revealed that he had met with Epstein in the years after Epstein was released from jail. The disclosures also have revived questions about whether longtime Epstein friend Andrew Mountainbaum Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, should cooperate with U.S. authorities investigating Epstein. Why do you think King Charles stripped his brother of the noble titles? You know, those who are in power know more about things and circumstances than the public does. So I ask the question again, why do you think King Charles unceremoniously stripped his brother of every noble title that he had and made him give up his place of residence? Because he knows what we don't know. That's the bottom line. And whatever it is that people that you think you're looking for, you're not going to find it. President Donald Trump's Justice Department said it would be releasing more than 3 million pages of documents, along with more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images under a law intended to reveal most of the material it collected during 2 decades of investigation involving the wealthy financier. So, making his first appearance, the president commented about the release, cast the documents as a vindication of his actions. Quote, I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, that the radical left, quote unquote. I don't care what's in the files personally because it's not helping anybody. How does releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, what does it have to do with the economy? What does it have to do with jobs? What does it have to do with Medicare and Medicaid? This is called pacificity. This is called to take your attention away from other things. Did you all really think that the releasing of these files was going to incriminate the sitting president of the United States of America? You people are crazy sometimes. I don't know what you're looking for or what you want. I don't care about the Epstein files. I care about people who are homeless in the midst of all this frigid weather and have no place to go. It's easy for you to say go to a shelter. You don't know what the shelters are like because most of y'all have probably never lived in them. What about the seniors who can't get what they need? What about the rocketing unemployment that's continuing to go on in this nation? What about Amazon getting rid of over 180,000 plus jobs and replacing them with robots? I said they're replacing them with AI-generated robots. Remember the movie I, Robot with Will Smith? The movie was sending a direct message as what was to come, but people just thought it was harmless entertainment. Everything that comes out of Hollywood is not harmless entertainment. It is sending an indirect message, and sometimes it's sending a serious message. Epstein files are not going to solve the pivotal problems that we have in this country. According to the Texas Tribune, Democrat Trey Hemet, a Democrat and machinist union leader, won the January 31 special election runoff for Senate District 9 in North Texas. He will face Republican Leah Wayne's Basque Nest, whatever his name is. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that name, in November. Get ready for November, ladies and gentlemen, because this is going to be a contentious election going down. So this was written by Everett Audio Player. Democrat and Machinists Union leader Taylor Remet won the special election Saturday to represent a solidly red Texas Senate district. President Trump carried by 17 points in 2024, a stunning upset that injected a fresh and urgent sense of a panic into the GOP from the Texas Capitol to the White House heading into November's midterm elections, with ballots tallied from all but a handful of voting centers. Remet had 57% of the vote, besting the 43% for his GOP opponent, conservative activist Leah Wayne Basque, who vastly outspent Remet as Republicans, including Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, mounted a furious funding push. Let me tell you, Republicans, something. You all think that money and trying to rig and fix elections is going to keep you in power, but it's not. People don't care about how much money you pour into your campaigns. People are fed up. People are angry. People are tired. People are frustrated. They're unemployed. They're hungry. People are tired with the killings of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. You think people are going to forget this in November as they go to the election polls? No, they're not. You spend all the money you want. Money doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to remain in power. Patrick, the Senate's powerful presiding officer, had raised alarm bells about the race and urged Republicans to turn out, as did Trump, who posted 3 separate get out the vote messages on social media in the 48 hours preceding the election. Well, I'll go so far as to say this. Galvanize, Democrats, and get ready. Galvanize, get ready. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take anything lightly going into November. Stop compromising. Stop trying to eagerly go along with any and everything, and you end up getting nothing out of it. If you're going to represent the constituency that you want them to give you the power to control Congress and control the Senate, then you better act like you're going to do the job that you say that you want. Or else it's going to be the same thing happening over and over again. This is not a joke in this country. This is a serious moment and a serious time. Here's a news article from The Guardian. It's regarding Cuba. This is coming from their World News section. Cuba is on the brink as Trump turns up the pressure. Quote, there is going to be a real blockade. The country is already suffering acute fuel shortage. Experts say complete cutoff will be catastrophic to its infrastructure. This article was written by Ruradi Nicole in Havana. Sorry, but this feedback from the light is kind of glaring on my end. It's just going midday in Lina, one of the main roads to Havana's Vidado neighborhood, and Javier, Pina, and Yasil Rabbits have been waiting since 6 a.m. outside a patrol station. They're passing the time fixing the leak on Ribas's 1955 gold and white Mercury. A tanker has pulled up on the forefront of them, and so the queue behind is growing fast, although this station only takes US dollars at a cost far out of reach of most Cubans. They said there is no gas in the national pesos, he says, struggling. Soon, even buying petrol in dollars may be impossible. The United States has said it will ensue. There will be no more fuel shipments to the beleaguered island. On Thursday, Donald Trump signed an executive order allowing extra tariffs to be slapped on any country that sells oil to the island. The White House said the move was to protect American citizens and interests from a regime that provides a safe haven for transnational terrorist groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas. With no proof of his allegation was offered, the Trump administration has now made plain it is seeking to fill the 67-year-old communist regime. Cuba will be failing pretty soon, Trump said earlier in the week. On Friday, Mexico's president warned that Trump's tariffs could trigger a far-reaching humanitarian crisis directly affecting hospitals, food supplies, and other basic services for the Cuban people. For Cubans, the situation is precipitous. Only one oil shipment has arrived this year, 84,900 barrels from Mexico, according to the data consultancy Capal. Given current reserves, if no more tanks arrive, Kepler estimates Cuba will run out of fuel in the next 3 weeks, the Financial Times reported on Thursday. So the crisis is there. All right, according to the Washington Post, the headline reads, 5 moments in the Alex Pretty shooting that raised red flags for policing experts. Policing experts were unanimous in saying that the situation probably could have been avoided by employing basic policy tactics that prioritize public safety and communication. No kidding. This article was written by David Nakamura, Sarah Bensky, Peter Herman, Derek Hawkins, Marianne Levine, and Zoan Murphy. The U.S. the tactics Border Patrol agents used against Alex Pretty in Minneapolis probably violate modern policing guidelines, several experts said, and add to a growing body of evidence that federal immigration officers are deviating from professional norms. The Washington Post spoke with 8 experts, all of whom have served in law enforcement or studied office behavior, who pointed to a sequence of actions by federal immigration officers Saturday morning that go against training guidelines designed to de-escalate potentially volatile situations. The policing expert cautions that the videos do not capture all events leading up to the moment officers tried to arrest Pretty, and that it is difficult to clearly see and hear everything that happens. You know what? I'm so tired of hearing this crap coming from law enforcement. You don't have the whole video. You don't know what led up to it. Well, these same law enforcement officers will use video when it suits their purpose and it justifies their actions. But when the same video can't be used to deal with discrepancies in stories that have been reported. That's the problem with polarization politics. Too many individuals are going by what is being told instead of going by what they know. The policing expert cautioned that the videos do not capture all the events. Whatever. University of South Carolina law professor Seth Stockton, a former police officer in Tallahassee who studies police misconduct and the regulation of force, said federal immigration officers have been egregiously deviating from professional norms of policing. Pretty's killing, 2 weeks after immigration officers fatally shot another U.S. citizen. No, Renee was not shot, she was murdered. I'm not going to allow the Washington Post to try to whitewash and minimize things and try to use a different type of phraseology. Pretty was murdered. When someone murders a police officer, they don't call it a killing, they call it the person a murderer. Isn't that what they call them? Yes. They're tagged, they're bagged, they're identified as a murderer. They're charged as a murderer. They're convicted as a murderer. They don't say it was a killing. Because when you say a killing, it could have been an accident. When you say a murder means it was intentional. So their assessment is that Pretty's killing 2 weeks ago, the experts are saying it deviated from normal policing tactics and has added to mounting public outrage and demands for accountability over the militarized tactics. the Trump administration has pursued while ramping up immigration enforcement. Several videos from different perspectives captured by onlookers raised questions about contentions from Trump administration officials that Pretty was brandishing a weapon before the shooting and intending to massacre officers. Well, that's their assessment of it. Ladies and gentlemen, be careful out there for those of you that are going to be protesting in these streets. Be very, very careful. Now, this is an odd story here from The Guardian. The LA Olympics chief says he deeply regrets emails with Ghislaine Maxwell. The latest Epstein Files release shows 2003 emails between Casey Wasserman and the convicted sex trafficker. Casey Wasserman, who wrote this article? Let me see who wrote this article. Oh, it was written by Guardian staff and agencies. Casey Wasserman, the head of the Los Angeles Olympics Organizing Committee, said on Saturday that he deeply regrets emails from 2003 between him and Ghislaine Maxwell that appeared in the latest collection of government released Friday. Among the exchanges included one from Wasserman telling Maxwell, quote, "I think of you all the time, so what do I have to do to see you in a tight leather outfit," end quote. Well, he's a freak. Don't people know that what you do is being recorded 24 hours a day, but the rich and powerful know how to cover up their stuff? I said the rich and the powerful know how to cover up all the stuff they do. This is just a dumb decision by another dumb person that's coming back to haunt him. As I said earlier, anything in the Epstein files that you think you're going to find, you're not going to find it. It's not going to be there. And that's why the files are being released, dummies. They're being released because it does not incriminate the President of the United States of America. When are you going to get the memo, the fax, the email? That's why the files are being released. Okay. The president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, announces a mass amnesty plan for political prisoners dating back to the Chavez era, according to The Guardian once again. Venezuela's acting president announced on Friday a proposal for mass amnesty in the country in her latest significant reforms since the U.S. toppling of Nicolas Maduro just weeks ago. In a speech at the Venezuelan Supreme Court attended by top government officials, Delcy Rodriguez said she would propose a general amnesty law covering the entire period of political violence from 1999 to the present. Leftist revolutionary Hugo Chavez. See, this is the thing that gets me. When people don't go along with something, the left is an indication, it's a derogatory term. Don't think it's anything in a complimentary fashion. Hugo Chavez was a great individual. I've studied his life very closely. He assumed the presidency in 1999 and was succeeded upon his death in 2013 by Maduro, who oversaw an increasingly authoritarian government and whose two re-elections were widely dismissed as fraudulent. Well, he's in the custody of America, and there's no going back. Quote, "This law will serve to heal the wounds left by political confrontation fueled by violence and extremism. It will allow us to put justice back on track in our country," also announcing a major national consultation for a new judicial system. She announced also plans to close the notorious El Helicoide prison in Caracas, where rights groups say political prisoners were tortured by Maduro's intelligence services. The Mathis facility, originally built as a shopping mall, will be turned into a sports, cultural, and commercial center for police, families, and neighboring communities, the president of Venezuela said. All right, I want to go over to the United Kingdom. I want to find out what's happening over there. Matter of fact, I want to go to Canada first. All right, this is concerning Canada now. Canada's opposition Conservative Party votes to keep leader Polari in power. All right, let's check it out. Here's the summary. Polari wins at 87.4% in party leadership. Conservatives lost the federal election last year. The left wing uh, they lost their lead poll after Trump comments on Canada. So Canada's opposition Conservative Party has voted overwhelmingly to retain Pierre Poilievre as its leader after a leadership review called following its defeat in a federal election. The party said at a convention in the city of Calgary on Saturday that Poilievre won 87.4% of votes cast in the review mandated after the Liberal Party, led by Minister Mark Carney, defeated the Conservatives in the election last April. Under Poilievre, a conservative, it held a more than 20-point lead over the Liberals last January, but U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated threats to make Canada the 51st U.S. state unified much of the country behind Carney. Poilievre lost his own seat in the election, but returned to Parliament after winning a by-election in August. See, these people never go away, y'all. They never go away. They will remain in power forever. It's time for new voices. It's time for new leaders. It's time for young leadership instead of a bunch of old people. It's time for new ideas. So what else do I have coming from Canada? Go back into my thing here. I'll be taking a break in about 2 minutes on the Sunday edition of Global News with on Tyrone Bowman Live. Give me a second. Pardon me, give me a second. Okay. Pope Leo is urging the U.S. and Cuba to engage in sincere dialogue. I'm not going to cover that one right now, but I will talk about the Detroit judge and 3 others who have been charged in schemes to steal thousands from vulnerable and incapacitated people. So, what is going on with this story? So, as reported by Fox News, written by Greg Norman Diamond, a Detroit judge and 3 other residents were charged by federal prosecutors for their alleged roles in a years-long scheme to embezzle money from incapacitated and vulnerable individuals. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Michigan said Andrea Bradley Baskin, who is 46, who is a district judge on Michigan's 36th District Court, is alleged to have used $70,000 in awards funds to purchase an ownership stake in a local bar, and money embezzled from the estate of a ward to pay a 2-year lease on a new Ford Expedition for herself. I'm going to rip this story apart in less than 60 seconds. ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Now I'm talking about this story about a Detroit judge and three others. They're charged in an alleged scheme to steal thousands from people who are vulnerable and incapacitated. So the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Michigan said Andrea Bradley Baskin, who is 46, who is a district judge on Michigan's 36th District Court, is alleged to have used $70,000 in Ward's funds to purchase an ownership stake in a local bar, and money embezzled from the estate of a Ward to pay a 2-year lease on a new Ford Expedition for herself. Quote, "We respect the authority that covers a black robe. This state judge and her cronies allegedly abused that high honor for personal gain by preying on the needy protection of the court," U.S. Attorney Jerome Corrigan said in a statement. "This would be a grievous abuse of our political trust," end quote. You know, the name of the game for them is don't get caught. They're doing it all. They're doing it in every state, every town, on the local level, on the state level, and even on the national level. Politicians are making a ton of money. They don't want you to know they're making a ton of money, but they're making a ton of money. They don't want you to know that they're taking bribes, from the lawyers who lobby on behalf of major corporations in America to make sure that legislation is passed that would benefit major corporations. They don't want you to know that they're accepting bribes and gifts and money. Well, this one right here, let me see if I can get a picture of her. She got caught. They got caught. Politics, people have been stealing money for a long time. This just happens to be a black magistrate judge who got caught. Regardless of a person's position in society, no one is above the law. Remember that. These people say no one is above the law, but there is selectivity. There is preeminent treatment for the rich and the powerful. These 4 defendants allegedly, why they keep saying allegedly if they're saying they did it? Either they did it or they didn't do it. Conspired to steal from some of our most vulnerable citizens, looting bank accounts, exploiting legal authority, and profiting of those who relied on them for care and protection. For those of you who are involved in the healthcare sector of society and you call yourself being a provider or caretaker for your loved ones, you better make sure that you are not pilfering or stealing the money out of the account from the person that you're supposed to be taking care of. Let me say that again. You better make sure that your greedy hands haven't forged the signature of that person. You better make sure you're not stealing their money, because if you are, they're going to get you. So here's a photo. Let me just say this before I show you the photo of the judge. On this platform, on this program, I don't care who you are, black, white, in between, up and down, Republican, Democrat, no party. I deal with everything and everybody the same way. There is no preferential treatment on Tyrone Bowman Live. If you're right, you're right. I will even stand up for Republicans if they're right. But I will lambaste the Democrats if they're wrong. You don't believe me? Go through my videos and you'll see. Go look at the video, Dumb Democrats. Duped again. This is the judge. Apparently, allegedly, she risked her entire career. You risk everything you worked for, getting an undergraduate degree and getting a law degree for $70,000. Are you crazy? Are you serious? The attorney's office said Nancy Williams, who's 59, Avery Bradley, who was 72, Dwight Rashad, 69, and Bradley Baskin, all Detroit residents, were charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The indictment also charges Bradley with 1 count of wire fraud, Bradley Baskin, and Rashad with several counts of money laundering, and Bradley Baskin with a single count of making a false statement to federal law enforcement. As I said, the name of the game is don't get caught. Because too many people, they think they can do what the other boys do. And let me just tell you, you ain't white. You're not a white politician breaking the law. They're coming for you. Up in Philadelphia, where I live, quite a few of them have always been indicted. It seems like every 8 years, somebody's under indictment in Philadelphia for something. And all right, let's talk about Don Lemon before I conclude today. According to NPR News, Don Lemon and Georgia Fort vowed to continue reporting fellow arrests tied to anti-ICE protests. The two independent journalists face federal charges related to the interruption of a church service in Minnesota after this month. Lemon and Fort say they were there to cover a protest. And that brings me to what happened down in Georgia at Reverend Dr. Pastor Jamal Bryant's church a couple weeks ago, when a MAGA conservative, a white guy, walked into their service and interrupted the service and called him all kind of ungodly names, and security had to interject him. Well, why hasn't he been arrested? Isn't that interfering with a guarantee by the Constitution, freedom of worship? That's the First Amendment, isn't it? Yes. So how come he wasn't arrested? Why didn't they arrest him down in Georgia? I'm going to ask the proverbial question again. Why wasn't the white MAGA conservative arrested down in Georgia after he came up into a black church on a Sunday morning with his cronies and called Reverend Dr. Jamal Bryant everything but a child of God? I told you all before, there are two versions of Christianity in this nation. White nationalist, racist, bigoted Christianity, fundamentally propagated by the evangelicals. And then there's the true version of Christianity. I don't even understand why black people go to these white churches where they call you out of your name, they insult your leaders, they insult your heritage, they insult your music. Next thing you know, you're talking like them, you're acting like them, you're singing like them, because they don't want you to have any identity whatsoever to an ancestral heritage. Why not? Everybody else can trace their ancestry. Everybody else is proud of their heritage, even dating back to the days of slavery. They'll say, well, I didn't enslave black people. Those were my great, 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 great grandparents, and I still love them. You know, many years ago, I went down to a place called Montpelier, Virginia. And I went to go to a slave plantation. I was disgusted. I said, I was disgusted. At that time, I was a pastor. I was disgusted and abhorred by what I saw. Those filthy, dirty, stinking slave shacks that are still standing. The unmarked graves where my ancestors are buried down in that region. The slave plantation with the big White House still standing. And you're going to try to tell me that we should forget about it? No, we're never going to forget about it. People don't forget about the Holocaust, and we're not going to forget about slavery. You can take all the monuments down, you can remove them, but it doesn't stop us from learning. Listen up, black people. You don't need nobody to teach you your history. Learn it for yourself like I do. What do you think libraries are for? Go to public libraries. All the information you need and want and desire is right there. We don't need a proclamation. We don't need an executive order. We don't need anyone's permission. We don't have to protest in the streets. Just learn your history. Know who you are. I have rejected the white version of Christianity. I do not worship and bow down to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white Jesus with lip gloss on. That's your version. I don't serve that one. And I'm never going back into that type of religion ever again. Never. Because white Christianity has done nothing for black folk. Nothing. It was white Christianity that gave us slavery. And it was preached and propagated into the white, racist, bigoted pulpits of America. It was incepted from the so-called church. And even now, you don't want to call it that, but that's what it is. Look at the white evangelicals who go along with everything so they can keep money coming into their coffers, so they can keep living their life, their lavish lifestyle off of your money. So they can keep talking about, well, we're one. We're one. No, we're not one. We're just as divided as we've ever been in this country and in this nation. Franklin Graham has called for a national day of prayer and fasting. How about this, Franklin? Why don't you open up your mouth and speak out against injustice? Open up your mouth and speak up for the poor. What is Samaritan Purse for? He's not on the front lines protesting. He's not out here. His father, on the other hand, the late Billy Graham, him I respected. But Franklin, no respect at all. Because I've seen the type of individual he's been down through the years. Oh, he may be old now, trying to amend his ways. So independent journalist Don Lemon and Georgia Fort have vowed to continue reporting. Lemon, a former CNN anchor, and Fort, a Miss Minnesota reporter, were released from federal custody on Friday following criticism from human rights advocates and journalism organizations over his arrest. A federal grand jury in Minnesota indicted Fort and Lemon on charges related to the interruption of a religious service at the city's church in St. Paul. Well, then they need to go get that white guy who came in there and interrupted the religious service at Bethany, at New Birth Baptist Church. He should be arrested and charged as well. What is the difference? He interrupted a religious service. He called the pastor everything but a child of God. So he said he interrupted religious services where a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement official is a pastor. You know, this reminds me of how the slave owners would beat the hell out of my ancestors and rape them and molest them all through the week, mistreat them and everything. Then on Sunday, to go sit in the church with them. Let us sink in. You'll get the point in a minute. Let us sink in. Both Fort and Lemon have maintained that they were not participating in the protests at the church, but were reporting on the incident as journalists. Speaking during his YouTube show on Friday, Lemon said that this is a moment for journalists around the world to stand up for each other. It may have started with people having their due process rights violated on the streets, violently violated on the streets, but now they're trying to silence journalists, and I will not be silenced, end quote, Lemon said on his show. Fort, a Minnesota native who filmed her arrest as federal agents showed up to her home on Friday, told CNN's Anderson Cooper shortly after her release that she will continue to tell the stories of my community. She also said the arrests have sent a chilling message to the media industry. And I'm going to close by saying this. Chris Cuomo is a hypocrite. Yeah, he's a hypocrite. All of a sudden, he wants to open up his mouth and start talking. Where have you been, Chris Cuomo, with his self-entitled self all this time? Oh, because you changed sides. And I'm going to leave it here with this one. When the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the civil rights movement, freedom movement really, it was more than about civil rights. It was about freedom against segregation, against Jim Crow, against bigotry, against lynching, against not having the right to vote, against not having decent schools. Eyes on the Prize, a documentary that aptly tells the true story of the freedom movement. In one of my classes, I had to pick a topic to write about, and I wrote extensively about the freedom movement. That was my topic of choice, and I'm here to tell you, Yes, by the grace of God, I aced it. I give him all glory and all praise because he's allowing me to excel academically and scholastically as I prepare to finish up in terms of getting that law degree. The civil rights movement, the freedom movement, it gave birth to so many different aspects of America. It brought out the best of people and it brought out the worst of people. And I'm going to go on record and I'm going to say this one more time. President Donald Trump did not invent racism here in America. It was already here. They were always there all the time. They just were waiting for a moment, a time, and an opportunity where they could really, quote unquote, come out of their closet. Did he perfect it? Yes. And he learned how to use it to his advantage. That's how he came into power. Because America was upset. White, racist, bigoted America was upset that Barack Obama became the president of the United States. Midterm elections are coming up. The question is, what are you all going to do? Are you going to complain? Are you going to bellyache? Or are you going to get up off your behinds and make a difference? Don't come out after the hard work has been done. Don't come out after people have become heroes. Don't come out after people have become martyrs for a modern crusade for freedom, justice, and equality. You have your cowards on both sides, Republicans and Democrats alike, and in between. They're the opportunists that want to make money, but they will never stand up for what is right and for what is just. We must progressively move forward in this nation. We must progressively have values that are emblematic of what America is and what America represents. This country of ours, ladies and gentlemen, should be one America. What does it say? Indivisible. You know, divided America stands, pardon me, divided America falls, and united America stands. Never surrender, never quit.